You know how it is? Geopolitical tensions, they can just explode out of nowhere. Headlines are screaming, politicians are posturing, and it's really easy to feel like we're right on the brink. But how do the experts, the analysts, tell the difference between just making noise and actually preparing for a conflict? Well, today, we're going to decode the signals using a really clear analytical framework.
And that's the real challenge, right? I mean, with so much information, so much chatter flying around, how do you separate the real signal from all the noise to figure out what's really going on? Well, the answer is they don't guess. They use a system. It all starts with a concept that's simple but honestly super powerful. A scale. Just a scale from 1 to 10. It's a way to measure, to track, and to put a number on the geopolitical temperature of a country or a whole region. All right, so let's break this down. We're calling it the stress scale. And really, it's a system for taking a country's temperature by looking at a few key things. What are its leaders saying out loud? What are its soldiers and ships actually doing? And who is talking to whom behind the scenes? Think of it this way. 1 is totally normal, business as usual, and 10 is, we are right on the edge of a conflict.
Okay, so theory is one thing. Let's put this whole framework to the test, right? We're going to apply our stress scale to the last week of events involving Iran, and we're going to track it day by day to see how the tension actually changed in the real world. So let's rewind the clock about a week. The stress level, according to our scale, was a 5 out of 10. Now, analysts call this a controlled tension environment. That sounds kind of technical, but all it really means is that, yeah, things are tense, but it's a predictable, almost routine kind of tense for that part of the world. So what does a 5 actually look like in the real world? Well, it looks pretty standard, actually. You've got routine surveillance flights from the U.S. Navy, standard patrols from Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. The official statements are, they're firm, but they're kind of boilerplate. It's the normal hum of a tense relationship. But then, just a few days ago, we see a jump. The needle moves from a 5 all the way to a 6.5. Now, that's not a crazy leap, but it's a big deal. It tells us the whole dynamic is shifting. So why? What's going on here? Well, it's because new players and new actions just entered the game. And here's the why behind that jump. American surveillance planes started flying deeper, closer to the supercritical Strait of Hormuz. Then you see Israeli and Russian government planes moving around, which tells you there's some intense diplomatic stuff happening. And maybe most importantly, the Iranian media started using much stronger language. Words like response readiness, more actors plus sharper words, well, that equals more stress. And this quote from the day's assessment, man, it just nails it. The signaling from multiple countries was getting a lot louder. But, and this is the key part, it was still below the line for actual military mobilization. This was a war of messages, not yet a preparation for a war of weapons. All right, fast forward to day -2, and we're climbing again. This time to a solid 7 out of 10. And you gotta understand, we're now officially in what you'd call the high tension zone. The air is definitely getting thicker. So what pushed us up to a 7? The surveillance flights aren't just going deeper, now they're more frequent, and they're covering way more area. You hear both Washington and Tehran using much sharper, much more direct language in public, and then you see it trickle out. Media outlets around the Gulf start openly talking about what-if scenarios. The whole neighborhood is officially on high alert. And all of that, well, it brings us right up to today. And the key takeaway here isn't just that the number is high, it's that it seems to be holding steady. It's high for sure, but it's stable. So, where are we today? We're at a 7.5. That's high, no doubt about it. But the most important point isn't just the number itself. It's understanding the kind of tension we're looking at, because not all high-tension situations are created equal. And this is really the top-line analysis for today. The intensity of the signaling is through the roof. But the situation has not yet become kinetic. Kinetic, that's just the fancy analyst way of saying, things are actually going boom. So what's the difference? And this right here, this is probably the single most important idea in this whole explainer. You have to understand the massive difference between a country signaling its strength versus a country that is actually preparing for an attack. They are not the same thing. Okay, so look closely at this. On the left, under signaling, that's what's happening right now. You've got organized surveillance flights, really sharp talk in public, a ton of diplomatic phone calls. This is all about sending a message. It's deterrence. Now, look at the right, preparing. This is what we are not seeing. We're not seeing missile units moving out of their bases and spreading out. We are not seeing big closures of civilian airspace. We are not seeing embassies being evacuated. This distinction, it's everything. So let me just state this as plainly as possible. Everything we can see, all the data that's out there in the open, it all points to a very loud, very clear campaign of sending a message. The goal here looks like it's to show enough strength to prevent a fight, not to actually get ready for one. Okay, so that's where we are now. But what if things started to get worse? I mean, really worse. What would that actually look like on the ground? Well, let's open up the playbook. These are the specific, observable things that would tell analysts the game has changed, from just signaling to something way more serious. Think of this table as your own personal cheat sheet for what to watch. And notice how specific these are. If some official shipping warnings go out in the Gulf, okay, that's a moderate spike, maybe half a point. But if we start seeing satellite pictures of Iranian missile units spreading out, that's a major spike, a full point jump on the scale. And then you've got the really critical stuff, closing down huge chunks of civilian airspace or confirming embassies are evacuating. Those would push us way, way closer to a 10. These are the big red flags. So for the next, say, 2 to 3 days, you can bet that analysts aren't just listening to speeches. They're glued to their screens, tracking flight data, looking at satellite images, and watching for any of these specific red flags. These are the things that give you the clearest, earliest warning that the entire situation has changed. And there you have it. It's a high-stakes, incredibly tense situation, and it's all built on this really complex language of military and diplomatic signals. The moves we're seeing are designed to deter, to try and stop a bigger conflict from breaking out. The signals have definitely been sent. But the real question, the one that keeps people up at night is, in a place this tense, is everybody reading the signals the same way?